Hello and welcome back, adventurers. Get comfy as we finish our conversation about Darkon with an overview of its best and worst cities. Neverjar Springs has long been one of the Darkon's most secluded settlements, an elven town straddling the Wuchar just a mile downriver from the revered Neverjar Shrine itself. Just like its inhabitants, the town has changed little over the centuries. Until the Requiem, the elves enjoyed the novelty of the occasional visitor, but they were content to be left alone. The revelation of the Nocturnal Sea has greatly complicated matters. Neverjar Springs is now Darkon's largest port of the eastern seaboard and holds the potential to becoming another cosmopolitan sprawl like Monterey Bay, a fate locals view with muted horror. Neverjar Springs is quaintly rustic community, awash in consciously overgrown hedgerows and herbal gardens. Cottages are constructed of wood and stone, often incorporating living trees in their frames. The town was laid out around a series of natural springs and is now dominated by the Baths, a soaring marble structure surrounded by wild gardens. The Baths' mineral waters famed for their therapeutic qualities. The town also houses the Library for Mycology, an archive of texts on herbal and medicinal cures, lovingly compiled by the elf mystics who guard the Neverjar Shrine. In recent years, however, numerous texts have been discovered to contain debased necromantic passages. Somehow, the scrolls seem to spread independently, like a blight, slowly killing a tree. Makel sprouted up around a natural harbor on the Wuchar, just downriver from the Norks. The sleepy town is a transfer point where original crops are gathered and shipped further into Darkon. The slain city has disrupted trade, however. Makel can no longer ship its goods as quickly as it collects them. Local farmers collect miserably low prices for their crops, which often end up rotting on the docks. Prowling undead are uncommon this far west. A crude wooden palisade encircles the warehouse district for caution's sake, but the heart of Makel remains unfortified, comfortably shielded by the river. The Ward of Perdition stands atop a low hill to the east, another former temple of the Eternal Order, now in the hands of Rain's anchorites. Makel's most significant landmark is Clangor Asylum, home to more than 100 tormented souls throughout Darkon. Clangor's tallest towers peer out over the entire town from behind the asylum walled grounds. Founded by Clangor family, the asylum is now Darkon's largest mental institution. Clangor alienists favor different treatments, from the newest medicinal discoveries developed in the asylum to bizarre and torturous, older, classical methods. From Makel, I traveled back upriver, this time taking the Norks to twin communities of Deledje and Sidnar. Deledje is a small halfling village with a striking architectural style. Although a handful of large buildings line the shore, the majority of the fishing village sits atop Lake Korst. The halflings' homes are rounded huts perched atop wooden supports resting on the lake bed, resembling a cluster of beaver lodges. Underwater wicker fences link the lodges, creating pens in which the halflings farm most of their fish. Narrow walkways line the top of the fences, creating streets that can support most foot traffic. Several diving platforms are moored in the deep waters near the marina. The townsfolk hold high diving competitions each summer, but they no longer swim as often as they once did. When the Doomsday Device energy wave passed over Delegia, all the corral fish were seen to jump in agitation, and a new inhabitant soon arrived in Lake Korst. Underwater fences have been torn open, and in 751, several swimmers were attacked and partially devoured by a large and monstrous aquatic creature. Goods collected in Delegia are ported up to elven community of Sidnar. One takes the Britain Bridge to get to Sidnar, a gloomy stone structure older than the town to which it leads. Ancient plaques in elven script commemorate those who fell to their deaths from these lofty heights. Supposedly, the Britain Bridge is all that remains of the citadel that once stood here in the Age of Secrets, and like all such structures originating from that era, it is supposedly full of secret passages. Sidnar's cobble streets wind up and down the hilly terrain, passing tall, narrow buildings of charcoal grey stone. Sidnar's tallest tower, the Star Spire, rises from the center of town. A local guild of astronomers called the Omen Watchers has set a number of telescopes atop the Star Spire. They gather here each night, carefully observing the skies for answers. Karg is an ancient and wealthy city sitting at the heart of the Vale of Tears. Its populace is predominantly human, but the city has a cosmopolitan flair hampered only by its ancient and ominous fortifications that supposedly started from the Age of Secrets. Karg is divided in two wards, Upper and Lower Karg, with latter sitting in a shallow depression. Upper Karg is home to the city's industries and upper class. It features wide boulevards and bustling open-air markets. The granaries fill entire city blocks, towering silos in which the region's grains are stored. The nearby canals are lined by a score of mills and breweries, and the smell of hops and barley hangs in the air. Church of the Soulful Dead sits across the canal, the largest remaining temple of the Eternal Order. It is famed for its black and grey murals depicting the sorrows of the dead at losing their land to the living, a continual reminder of the Grey Realm's resentment. Lower Kark, by contrast, is an urban nightmare of meandering narrow streets and crowded slums, sharing the land with the Foreman Atrum, or Black Hole. The towering citadel of black brick is a prison and public headquarters of the Kargat, though its leaders are never publicly seen. Temple Falls is a rugged mining settlement overlooking the spectacular cascade of the same name. The misty spray and roar from these waters can carry halfway across town. Glorious rainbows arc through the mist on sunny days, but when skies turn grey, the rainbows are replaced by spectral twisting shapes, believed to be spirits of dwarves killed in the mines. Temple Falls also serves as the gateway to the reclusive dwarven complexes hidden high on Mount Nirka's northern slopes at the lonesome mining camps deep within the Mountains of Misery. Temple Falls is perched on the edge of massive cliffs, divided into 4 wide tiers. While a number of squat stone buildings line the edge of each tier, these are primarily the homes and businesses of the town's small non-dwarven population. The town actually burrows directly into the cliffs, with the dwarves living in the sprawling, windowless complexes. Warehouses and peasants' homes are clustered on the bottom tier, closest to the polluted river. The second, commercial tier, includes the primary mine entrances, marketplaces, and a park with a quaintly named ornate fountain. The name Dizzard's Sorrow allegedly came from the poor fellow Dizzard drowning himself inside. The third tier is the residential district for the upper classes, and lastly, the governmental tier houses the tomb-like palace of the ruling family, along with the ancestral vault, a temple dedicated to dwarven gods. Maven sits in the oxbow curve of the Corvus River. The river and the nearby Argentus Road allows for a greater trade routes in the gnome community. What was largely a gold and silver mining camp now transformed into a center of gnome culture in Darkon. Maven features an eccentric architectural style, or lack of one, as the case may be. Local gnomes love experimentation. The nearly every building on display represents at least a few new unusual features. Maven's primary claim to fame is the patent hall, where inventors come to register their inventions. To register a new device, the inventor must provide a working scale model, which then goes on permanent display. Technically, this allows the inventor to market their device for 20 years, but in practice, the patent is not really enforced outside of town. Maven is also famous for its clockworks, an ornate wooden clock tower that soars above the heart of town. Powered by the underground conduit, the clockworks are entirely autonomous. Automated dances emerge to toll the hour, but in recent years the clockworks have developed quirks that the gnomes still struggle to repair. The great clock sometimes refuses to chime, and several of the dancing figures have disappeared. According to legend, Corvia was an extinct volcanic peak in the Grey Realm. When life washed over the land, Corvia did not receive enough to ignite its vital spark. The mountain's flesh slouched away, leaving only its bones, immense pillars of glassy black stone. Early dwarven settlers in the Age of Secrets hollowed out the spires to create an entire town that stretched into the sky. Fixed stone bridges constructed between many of the taller pillars connect levels high above the ground and act as support braces. Corvia is a city of artisans and craftsmen. Raw materials are shipped here from the Temple Falls to be turned into jewelry, armor, and all manner of trinkets. These goods are then shipped through Darkon and beyond. The Whistling Tower is an ominous local landmark. The spire proved too porous for excavation and so was left untouched. When the winds blow through Corvia, natural faults in the tower emit a mournful whistling howl. According to the legend, whenever the Whistling Tower sings, someone is fated to die. Viaki's other name is the village that never ends, and it is a fitting one. The population is dispersed over a spread of several miles, clustering their humble wooden huts and cottages around every available clump of grassland. A network of dirt roads and low wooden walkways connects the community. To attract some money to this poor community, the Viaki elders have constructed a number of amusement houses designed to entice affluent visitors to spend extra time in their city. The most popular of these amusements are a rickety hand-powered merry-go-round and the Museum of Grotesques, which displays pickled specimens of strange creatures found in nearby swamps. Most intriguing to me, though, was a small tea house where local women pose as Vistani to read the futures of gullible patrons. Locals claim that one of these false soothsayers offended a passing Vistana who cursed her for her hubris. The woman is now a lost one who sits alone in the back room in the tea house. now addressed as the Lost Seer, she reacts only to predict the deaths of anyone she sees. Nablus is Darkon's most cosmopolitan elven community, its inhabitants accustomed to seeing new faces. The city sits by the headwaters of Nezran River, surrounded by a wide swath of feeble cropland. The ever-shifting misty border lies just to the north, and the town is continuously cloaked in fog and gloom. The town's architectural style exhibits a distinctly macabre quality. The streets are cobbled with broken gravestones, luring skulls and elven inscriptions peering out from the building's macabre walls. According to the legend, Nablus rests on the site of an ancient burial ground, dating back to the Grey Realm. When Darkon formed, the original inhabitants pillaged the necropolis to create their own homes. A home to many philosophers and scholars who come here to ponder the afterlife, Nablus now surprisingly remains a stronghold for the Eternal Order. The Order's doomed temple, the Shrine of Spirits, sits just to the east of town. Its stained glass windows were tinted smoky black when the Doomsday Device energy wave passed through them. Monterey Bay's residents have always owned a reputation for their great ambition. When Aslin ascended to power, Monterey Bay was just a humble fishing village, but now it has swelled to become Darkon's largest, most cosmopolitan city. Monterey Bay is an ungainly sprawl of cobble streets and narrow buildings of brick and wood, with only a few local landmarks rising above 2 stories. The Monterey Highway divides the east and south districts as it enters the city. The east district contains the walled manors of the city's elite and the Cosmopolitan Club, an exclusive gentlemen's club, much favored by the city's aristocrats and guild leaders. The South District is home to mercantile middle class and Monterey Bay's famed shipyards. The Guild Quarter contains the city's workshops and craftworks, including a musical library maintained by the Bards Guild, and the bustling Merchants Quarter features a huge open-air bazaar and shops selling goods from across the core. Nartok is the kingdom's guardian against Volkovian aggression and is often called Fortress Darkon. The city has gradually spread out from ancient Nartok Keep, which rides above the city on a rocky hill. In the Arcane Age, Nartok was a lone tower occupied by the Night Mage. After its master fell some 4 centuries ago, loggers slowly gathered at the tower's base. Over time, Nartok Keep was expanded into a full castle, and Nartok grew to cover the district known as Old Town. After the first Volkovian invasion of the Dead Man's Campaign, the panicked town fathers ordered thick stone curtain wall built around their town, and now Nartok districts outside of the walls are collectively called New Town. Filled with sawmills and carpentry workshops, the Loggers' Quarter is home to Nartok's extensive lumber industry. The rest of the new town is divided among numerous ethnic quarters. An abandoned Temple of Eternal Order sits at the edge of town. Evidence indicates that was the birthplace of Death 7 years ago. Edifice remains spiritually tainted to this day and is shunned by the scavenging clerics of other faiths. Rivelis originated as a scattered collection of sheep and goat farms, with the axonal nature overcoming the halfling's natural wanderlust. Once Lamordia appeared in 683 Roman calendar, however, the community grew by leaps and bounds, and its position as the Lamordian gateway to Darkon. Nearly every home and business has its own flower garden, exploding the city with vibrant colors during spring and summer. Rivelins take their gardens very seriously, with many amateur gardeners attempting to breed new strains of flowers. Fittingly, Rivelis' most notable landmark is a gargantuan greenhouse called the Crystal Garden, where the public can view rare and exotic plants throughout the year for a few coppers. Strangely, even monstrous plants sprouted in the torrid climes inside the Crystal Garden for several years now. The gardeners scrutinized the flower beds every day, fearing that a true horror could emerge in some overlooked corner. Thank you so much for your time, patient listeners. Darkon is a beautiful land to live in if you're rich and powerful, or if you're hiding far away from the world in one of the countless farming communities. Whatever you desire, Darkon has you covered, but as you travel there to achieve your dreams, be careful while crossing the mists.